This is art. Any recovery topic is art. Joining me today is Bob, and we are going to be talking about the weed, the ganja, the green, the wacky tobacco. What else is they?
You know, dope, pot, whatever. There's tons of nicknames for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, wanted to dive into this topic because Bob and I share the fascination, if you will, of marijuana in our addictive years. Um, in our history, it was our drug of choice. There were many, but that was the go to for me. And you have shared with me that that was a go to for you as well.
Most definitely.
I had started very young at the age of 13. I was turned on to it by a family member and experiencing alcohol shortly after through parties on the weekends at school, not at school, but with schoolmates during junior high. It just didn't compare. Alcohol just did not compare because I didn't get sick from it. You know, I could still drive a car, and I had myself convinced that it was something that made me more creative, artistically.
Uh-huh.
But so, how early did you start?
I was in my teens. I can't remember exactly. Um, I really can't remember exactly. It might have been 14, 15, 16. It was somewhere in there. I remember first time I did it, it didn't do anything for me. And I probably did it 3 or 4 more times before it really kicked in and I started feeling it. But I had a friend of mine who played guitar that turned me on to it. And I was a drummer. I started playing drums when I was 11. So we were playing Jumpin' Jack Flash and some cool music at the time. But then I started, getting high from it. And once I got that effect, I really liked it. And I was, in high school, I remember a friend of mine would get his big brother to buy us wine, and we'd drink the Boone's Farm apple wine and get trashed and go to football games and baseball or basketball games at the high school, and saw a bunch of crazy stories about that. But the weed was always something that I liked better. I liked the way it made me feel. Like you said, you don't have any real after effects so much. Yeah, you're burned out a little bit, but it doesn't have the physical, you know, hangover or nausea that alcohol can give you. So, but I just remember very first time I went to a Christmas party. Not the first time, but when I first got served liquor, my uncle gave me a glass full of liquor when I was 14 at a Christmas party, and I never looked back. Once I got a taste of getting high, I loved it, and marijuana became my drug of choice at an early age. I liked it better than alcohol.
Now, were you like me? No matter what the other substances were, it was always paired with marijuana.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I was exposed to some bizarre drugs in college and beyond, a little bit of this and that, but never put a needle in myself, thank God. But, I was around a bunch of crazy stuff being a musician. But the weed was always what I felt most comfortable with. And, and I was the kind of person that would get high just because I was feeling good. I don't want to, feel better, and I don't want to get high. So I was high around my family a lot, around my friends that weren't getting high. And I can't imagine how many times I had been, mentally out of touch with what was going on because I was high in an environment with people that weren't. So I was the guy that ran around with a single hitter and would do it all the time.
So, from the age of 13 to 45 was my track record of using it. And during those years, uh, I wasn't always doing other substances, but that was a constant for me. Was it like that for you as well?
I'd say so. Yeah, I always liked having it. I always, when I had it, I used it. when I didn't have it, I would get a little antsy and want to go find some. Yeah, I mean, yeah, again, I didn't start quite that young, I don't think, but through college, I was in a fraternity in college that just got formed when I started college in 1974. And it was the quote unquote pothead fraternity. We were known to be musicians in the band, and they had a reputation of smoking a lot. So, I fit right in with those guys. Um, what's the Pink Floyd album? Dark Side of the Moon had just come out. Peter Frampton's Live just came out. I remember being totally gooned, listening to those on a stereo system, played vinyl, believe it or not. But that was, back in the 70s when I was really entrenched in it. And then beyond, once I got out of school, I continued to do it, so.
Something that I can recognize now that I didn't see as it was happening was how much it was robbing me of certain things in life. Being present and mindful of things such as family get togethers.
Mm-hmm.
When any normal, average person would be enjoying the company of family that they haven't seen in maybe a year or longer. And I'm in these situations and I'm thinking, I need to go get high. I got to sneak out of here, and just a couple of hits off of the bowl or maybe a small pin joint or anything. I just got to sneak away for a little bit. So I would come up with excuses to run to the store to get a pack of cigarettes or something
Sure.
like that, and just be able to accomplish that and then come back. And then I felt like I could enjoy myself. That's definitely the addictive mentality, which leads to the topic of how it's being prescribed nowadays as a medicine for people for anxiety and different types of ailments. Where do you stand on that?
Well, that's a interesting question. I'm not for legalization of it because I know what it did to me for most of my life, because I really didn't think it was that bad, right? That's the mentality we have. Oh, I could be doing worse stuff. I could be out shooting up and this and that. And I've never put a needle in me or anything like that. But, you kind of justify it when you're using it, right? And I just don't think it's good for the youth to have it legalized. I just don't. I think it's going to lend for too many young people to start using it, and it can lead, as they say, it's a gateway to other drugs, and I really believe that too. Depends on, what you're into, but I did some other drugs here and there, not habitually, if you will. I did drink a lot throughout my tenure of using marijuana. So it's all the same. When you said something, though, that was very interesting about how you weren't present, that's probably my biggest regret from all the times I did uh, use marijuana a lot, driving home from work. I didn't do it at work too often, very rarely. And I was in sales, I was in an office, I wore a suit and tie every day, that type of thing. So I had a respectable job. But, once 5, 6 o'clock rolled around and I was leaving the office, I was at the bar or I was puffing. And then I'd get home with new babies and young kids in the house and a wife, and I wasn't present. I just, that's probably, and I'm feeling it now. I mean, my kids have even said, didn't have much of a childhood. I left their mother, when they were young also, and actually we just agreed to split up. But so it was, the marijuana would take me out of reality, and then I'm not relating to people. I'm not relating to my family, to my kids, to life in general, right? And part of the addictive nature that you learn if you're in recovery is it's a self-centeredness that pervades all addictions. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's gambling, porn, drugs, alcohol, whatever it is. It's a self-centeredness. I want. You know, like my shirt here says I like to golf, but and I know things. We think we know everything when we're
That's what I
getting
do.
high.
I golf and I know
And I know
things.
things. Anyways, that's another one of my addictions is golfing, but that's a healthy one. So and drumming, being a musician, I was around it all the time. So going out and getting high on break was part of my world in the '90s, and I would come back on stage high, and it was difficult sometimes. I mean, the drummer has a heavy load on him, can't be screwing up, and I didn't very often, but I remember sometimes I was a little bit too high, and I remember, I used to use alcohol that way too. I used to remember the band pulling me aside once saying, you've had a little bit too much to drink, which really threw me for a loop, because when you're doing it, you don't realize it. You think everything's fine, and it's not. So that's the regrets I have from a life of using.
Now, you and I both have a few years around the program now, and I'd like to get in a little bit into what they call California sober, or however they want to label it, because that thought crossed my mind when I first came back into the program of recovery this time back in 2015. Originally, I was going to do it like I did every other time, which was I need to get off of all these other drugs and alcohol, but I can still do the weed because it's safe. I can't get in trouble for it or whatever. I had all these different excuses as to why I was still going to do it, which I had done in the years prior to, going all the way back from 1989 with my first experience in recovery. However, this time I thought, well, maybe I'll just put it down for a little while and I'll do without it for now. And thank God I did, because I got to thinking about it after a while, and I realized that all the other times that I had come into recovery and I kept smoking pot, I always ended up going back to everything else.
Mm.
It wasn't right off the bat, it wasn't overnight, but the addictive mindset was always there, and I had never fully progressed beyond being stuck in that addictive mindset. I needed to put all of it down in order to get to a point where I was ready to mentally, emotionally, and physically heal from all of it, right? And I'm glad that I did, because I recognize now what a problem it had been for me, how much damage it has done in my life. I mean, we're talking breathing problems, memory problems,
Sure.
social problems that I didn't recognize before.
Mm-hmm.
Those close to me didn't want me high all the time. And that was, I was self-prescribing with it. So when I was no longer high, I needed more, because I realized that part of that addictive behavior in me kept me high. And as soon as I came down, I needed to get back there.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see people in the program nowadays saying that they're prescribed it, I like to ask them, what is the prescription? They usually say as needed. And then my follow-up question is, how often do you need it? Are you using it like an addict?
Mm-hmm.
When the high goes away, do you need more so that you can get high again? I have witnessed people recently who have changed my mind about it, and I know that these people that I have spoke to got prescribed it. They're older gentlemen, both of the two examples that I'm thinking of. They use it in the evening. They use it very minimally. They don't use it addictively, and they try not to get to a point where they're actually high from it. They do it to take the edge off,
Right.
to bring down their anxiety.
Right.
And I, who am I to say that it can't be done? There were two examples of two people that I spoke with that were showing me that it can be done. So I know that it can be done, but I think that it's very important for people to question themselves, their behaviors, and the way that they're utilizing it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I know for me personally, if I do one little taste of marijuana, I'm high, and I'm very sensitive to it. I always have been, and I don't know that I could do it medicinally, quote unquote, or like that, and then not want to do more when I started coming down. My whole drugging world was, oh, I'm coming down. Let me go out and puff some more. Let me do some more. So and again, until I crashed, and there's been many days I would wake up and use. That's I think that's an individualistic thing. I think there might be some medicinal benefits to it, to relieve anxiety, to help you with pain. I know some people have pain management. They use it because they're prescribed it. Whatever works for them. But for me, all I can do is speak about my experiences. I personally have the addictive gene, whatever it is. They say it's genetic. They say, there's a lot of mental reasons that you gravitate towards getting out of your own head. So for me personally, it would be a difficult task. I hope I don't get to that point. I might, not getting any younger. My arthritis is really getting bad. So, but at the same time, I would think there's some other options. Like I take meloxicam, which is like an ibuprofen for my pain right now, and that seems to be doing okay. So anyways, but again, my whole world has been around the past 15 plus years around trying to recover, and I've only got I'll be coming up on 5 years in February. It's January right now, so I'm close to it. But the fact is, it's a disease, and I was kind of masking mine, pretending I was okay, and then I'd go back out. I relapsed probably a half dozen times between 2010 and 2020, and because I didn't get step one, if you know the steps,
There's not
admitting
many
that I
of
was
us.
powerless over my addiction. I felt I'm holding down a job. I can do this. I can do that. It's all bogus, man. We play so much mental games with ourselves. And now I've seen the light with that, and it's been a great ride the past 5 years of not using, because I'm much crisper mentally. I feel better. I just left the doctor's office with a physical, and all my vitals are spot on. I'm doing great. Knock on wood. So anyways, I just don't see the health benefits of using anything, but we do it because we like the buzz. At least that's how I got into it. I like getting high. When I do a lead, I say that right off the bat. Hey, I like the buzz. Remember my uncle giving me that shot when I was little, and how I felt. And that's embedded in my head. And now I knock on wood, I have enough sobriety now and clean time now that I don't have that urge very often. But it is a disease, and it's always there. And I'm grateful for the program and the meetings and staying in touch with this whole addictive issue, because it keeps me out of trouble. It has been anyways.
Let's talk legalization real quick.
Okay.
In my years of active use, I was wanting it to be legalized. Now I think it's a bad idea. I think it's a dangerous idea.
I do too.
And it definitely is not going to help people like myself who have the addictive mentality that will end up using it addictively and, potentially lead to worse outcomes because of lowered inhibitions, and they call it a gateway drug.
Yeah, why do they call it that? They've always called it that. Even when I was young, when I was a young teenager, marijuana is a gateway drug. What the heck's a gateway drug? Well, leads to other drugs, leads to other, substance abuse disorders.
Which it has in my experience for myself.
I think it does for a lot of people. I don't know too many people that smoke weed and don't experiment with other and haven't experimented with other drugs. Honestly. So legalizing it's just going to open up those floodgates of more people at younger ages engrossing and using marijuana, and then wondering why they have to use coke and crack and heroin and opioids, and just the list goes on, wondering why they have these other desires, and then their lives are messed up.
When they legalized it in Colorado, I remember doing some reading on it because I had the thought, you know what? I would not be surprised if their DUI convictions go up. Sure enough, that's exactly what I found when I looked into it.
That's totally understandable because they can test you for marijuana now. Mm-hmm. Driving under the influence is not always alcohol.
Right. And it stays in your system longer. So you
like
could
up to 2 weeks.
Yeah. So you can smoke, think that your high is gone and you're okay to drive, get pulled over, get tested, and get popped. And it's good for the finances for the state, I guess. But and some people say, well, it's a moneymaker, and I have no argument against them saying that, but I don't believe that it's their primary reason for why they legalized it. However, I don't fully understand what was their primary reason for legalizing it. I think it was ideally to decriminalize it and to lighten the load of the court systems and the prison systems on marijuana convictions. But a sword has two sides.
Yeah.
A coin has two sides.
Yeah.
You legalize it, now all of a sudden you have more DUIs on chemical related, foundations. What do you think?
Unfortunately, the government it doesn't understand the disease, I don't think, quite honestly. It's all about revenue for them. Think about the money that alcohol brings into the government, the local taxation. Alcohol is more expensive in PA than it is in Ohio, right? In West Virginia, there's a reason for that. It's taxes. So I think some of these politicians are seeing it as a bit of a money grab. I could be wrong in that, but I think they are. And I think it's okay to maybe lighten the burden on the system of incarceration and all that, and maybe make that a little bit less stringent for someone that uses marijuana. You're not like murdering somebody. There's different degrees of sin, if you will, or of criminal activity. But I just don't see a benefit to legalizing it for the persons of society at all, because it's going to get in the hands of younger people more easily than it does now. But even through prohibition, people had no problem getting alcohol. So drugs are going to be out there no matter what. The solution is to stop them from entering our society, which is not too easy to do, especially in this day and age. So, and I really think the best solution to all this is having the right parenting for these kids to somehow instill in them that stay away from that stuff. It doesn't bode well. I'm speaking from experience. You're speaking from experience. And, that's why I have a lot of regrets now, because I wasn't in tune with that when I was raising my kids, some 30 years ago, So, but I don't think it's going to be beneficial to legalize it. I just don't see the benefit. That's my opinion.
So, in a nutshell, is marijuana bad? Is it harmful? Is it dangerous? To the person suffering with the addictive personality, chances are it is or it will be. However, there are those rare cases in which people can use it responsibly. They have shown that it can be done. Can't deny that. I know for the recovering addict alcoholic such as myself, it's very dangerous. It's not going to end up well if I try it just once. It's just going to start the ball rolling over again.
We've done enough research, Nikki.
Yes, we have.
I think that's the reality of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, Bob, thank you so much for spending this time and having this conversation with me.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It was something that I've been wanting to do for a little while now. If you're not aware, we have a Facebook page. Any recovery topic is art. Follow us, give us a like. Follow us on YouTube, youtube.com/@ Any recovery topic is art. Give us a like and subscribe, and please share this with others.
And share your suggestions with us for other topics.
Yes, definitely.
Drug related.
Mental health.
There you go.
Even nicotine.
Even nicotine, which is a drug.
We try to dip into any recovery topic.
There you go.
I actually have an interview coming up where I'll be interviewing a hypnotherapist. So
that'll be good.
We'll try to dip into different areas. All right. Well, thank you for joining us.